Hi, so the first thing you want to understand about density is that it is equal to always the mass over the volume. And so one thing you want to do is you want to be clear about when you see the units, you recognize those units as mass or volume. So mass can be recognized in the gram family, which would be anything with a prefix like kilogram, milligram, microgram. And so those are the metric units of mass, but then there are non-metric units of mass like pounds, ounces, tons. Any of those would be considered mass also. And then you have the volume family, which would include, in the metric world, liters in the whole liter family, which would be milliliters, microliters, nanoliters. Any of those would count as a volume. You also have this metric length that gets cubed, and this whole thing is considered a volume. So that would be meters cubed or millimeters cubed. Any of these length measurements that are cubed count as a volume. But then you also have the non-metric world, which would be gallons, quarts, pints, cups, teaspoons. Any of those would be considered non-metric units of volume. So if you see any of these things, they should indicate whether you're dealing with mass or volume. So in the problem with the marshmallow, you're given some information. You're given the volume is equal to 2 cubic inches. That's just telling you what it is, and that the unit, that whole thing, is considered, just like we would consider a milliliter a unit of volume, a cubic inch is a unit of volume. And the density is given as the mass, which is 0.242 grams over the cubic centimeter. So in any density problem where you're using density as a conversion factor, this is the whole idea. Your setup would be that you have a volume and you're multiplying it by the density, where the density is a mass over a volume, and that's going to give you mass. So let's just plug in the numbers. You have a volume of 2 cubic inches, and you're going to multiply that by 0.242 grams per cubic centimeter. And it looks like those volumes are not going to be able to cancel to leave you with grams, because you want your answer in grams. So maybe off to the side until you're good at this and can do it all in one problem, you would take those cubic inches and you would look for the conversion between a cubic inch and a cubic centimeter, which are also given in the problem is, let me see, that for every 1 cubic inch, that would relate to 16.39 cubic centimeters. So the cubic inches would cancel now. You now have your volume, which is 32.78 cubic centimeters. So now you have your volume in that unit instead of this unit, and you can plug it in here. So the final step would be 32.78 cubic centimeters, and you would multiply it by the density. Those would now cancel. You'll be left with grams, and the answer, rounded, should be, I think, 7.9 grams, but double check. Now the only other way that this kind of problem would differ is if you're given the mass and you're given the density. And then in that case, you have to take mass and multiply it by the density flipped upside down. So the volume part would go up here and the mass part would go here. And when the units are the same for those two things, you will be able to solve for volume. And then maybe there's a part at the end where you have to take the volume and turn it into another unit from the unit that comes out here. All right, hope it helps. Have a good day.